This is the Three Skeevers podcast.
All right, episode 22 of the Three Skeevers podcast with Grim from Grimsforge Gaming and myself, Icy, with Icyfire Gaming. How you doing, Grim?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good as well. I just ran a vet Black Rose prison right before this podcast that we're recording, and I got my resto staff, so I'm excited about that. And today we have our first returning guest. Is there no one else? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, before we start with the normal list of things that we're going to talk about today, I want to discuss the transmutation crystals, just to prep your minds. So, I think the system that they have for the collections and that you can use your transmutation crystals for, I think it's pretty powerful because if you're making a lot of builds and stuff, and I'll use one example that I ran into and where I realized how strong this whole system was. I was running the Outcast Sork build where it was just Plague Doctor and Necropotence and I think maybe Iceheart, and just one bar setup to do VMA, Vet Maelstrom Arena. And once I used it for that, and then afterward I was like, well, I kind of want to change the setup. So then I just deconned all the gear and stuff, and since I had a full set of Plague Doctor and Necropotence, I got all of my crystals that I used to reconstruct the gear, I got them back. So then I could just change the build with something else that I can reconstruct at the cost of just the initial investment of 250 crystals for two 5-piece sets.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Are you guys aware of this, or what do you guys think about that?
I did not know that, actually. So I knew you could recreate gear. I didn't know the gear that you recreated you could then deconstruct and get the transmutes back. That's pretty cool.
And so here's the catch, though. You only get 25 back. So if you only have...
Okay.
Yeah, so if say you only have like the body pieces and it costs you say 55 or 50 transmute crystals to reconstruct, if you deconstruct those, you only get 25 back. So the system really shines when you have the full gear set collected and it only costs you 25 crystals to reconstruct it. So if you made a mythic, so say you wanted to test your mythics, right? Like say Ring of Wild Hunt with Swift versus a Ring of Wild Hunt with Infused or something. You could run Swift for a week, and then the following week you deconstruct that Swift one and then reconstruct the Infused one, and it will only cost you the initial 25 crystals that you put for the investment.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What they've done with transmutes is just amazing. It's really nice.
Yeah. And I had a discussion with one of my buddies, Emma, and he was telling me how he doesn't know if with the critical chance changes and stuff, because we're critting less now, if it's even worth running Impen anymore. So I told him, well, because I know he has the full gear collected, I said, listen, just run Impen, for 1 week, see how it works, and then next week just decon it all, you get your crystals back, then put on all divines or whatever you're running, and then try that for a week, and then just compare and what do you think? Because this system is so good. I think if you're a content creator or if you're just making a lot of builds and stuff, where you can mix and match and really optimize and figure out what works well.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice.
I knew about it, but on my low level characters, I'm starting to see people reconstructing full sets. So I'm seeing some really sweaty full man teams all wearing crimson, or they're all using Hunter's Venom and things like that. So I kind of wish that it wasn't allowed for low level and only at end game, like CP 160, because I think it's going to hurt the maturation process for new PvPers. They're coming into PvP. This might be their first experience, and then most people don't know that you can, when you're queuing for Battlegrounds, there's a tab to the top right, and you select that tab, and there's a drop down menu, and you can select solo queue for Battlegrounds. It automatically defaults to team queue or whatever, and so they're going to be queuing into that mess and getting absolutely handled by a lot of the sets right now that are still available, and they're available in a no CP situation where most people don't even have, their major resolve or their toolkit yet, and they're getting hit with all kinds of crazy stuff. So I kind of wish that it wasn't a thing, and if they don't, I'm a little torn. Like, if they don't fix that, then should I abuse the hell out of it until there's so many complaints? So
Yeah.
But equally, Grim, couldn't you make an argument that, I mean, you're kind of doing the same thing with crafted gear? It's kind of like the same thing, except now with the reconstruction system, you can essentially, craft, in quotes, overland gear, normal dungeon gear, not monster sets, not mythics, for these low level BGs.
yeah, it's mostly, I think, like, for the most part, I think they've done a good job with the craftable sets not being completely broken for the most part. Like, they're fairly vanilla, right? And it's when we get into the proc set stuff that's available through Overland and through dungeons and stuff like that, that's what becomes it's problematic in game when people have their full build and their full everything ready. Imagine what it's like in a no CP environment against newer players. That's the only thing. There's certain gear sets that are not balanced, and for me too, like, I have purple armor pieces, but my jewelry's white, and I don't gold out my weapons either, so they're just purple weapons, which is more than, I acknowledge that it's more than some people. They just randomly pick up whatever they come across and go into battlegrounds. So there is that, but I feel for those people when they run into, sets that there's no way they're going to be able to handle. So
Yeah.
I know we're going to probably touch on that entire discussion in a later video or a later part of this episode. But what I will say is I get all sorts of people that comment on my channel, and I obviously talk about proc sets and different things. And I've brought forth the argument that proc sets aren't good for new players. They're just not good, because it's already hard enough to know what to do and know how to deal with, okay, this is single target damage, this is AoE damage, these are heal over times. These, like, learning the first stuff, it really takes some time to figure out what you actually have to do. And then when you have just unavoidable damage ticking on you, and then, like you said, you compound it by being on a newer character that doesn't have the tools, like, you don't get vigor right away, you don't get rally right away, you don't have these things, and you're just there and you're just dying. And it gets frustrating, because it's like, okay, well, I guess I just don't PvP right now. I guess maybe I just don't PvP until I get a higher level character, but this is low level BGs. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be, and now I can't be here because, it's a good thing that they're adjusting those sets, but those sets are very problematic in more than just like Champion Point Battlegrounds or Cyrodiil.
yeah, that's been my experience with it. And I think, so the build video, or the video that you're talking about, would be, let's see, incorporating sets to balance classes in ESO and why it doesn't work. I know you kind of touch base on that. Let's fast forward, since we're on that topic, and then we'll kind of backtrack, because we have an itinerary sitting in front of us. But the incorporating sets to balance classes in ESO and why it doesn't work. Can you give us, like, just a basic rundown of what that video is, and then we'll dive into it?
Yeah, sure. So long story short, I've gotten in a few discussions about the proc set adjustments, because it's the biggest story right now. Like, no proc Cyrodiil is a huge deal, and either people are really, really happy about it or they're really upset. But either way, if somebody's playing this game and they're playing in Cyrodiil, they have an opinion on it. And I've been seeing a lot of opinions, and one of the ones that I saw was, hey, we need these proc sets, because if these proc sets don't exist, my insert class here is no longer viable. And I've talked about this in the past, and I disagree with that point of view, because Yeah, I like the example I brought up. I talked to this guy about his melee mag blade, and melee mag blade has not been viable or really good for a long time, and he really liked Colurians, and Colurians is going to get adjusted last year to where it was going to be best in slot for stamina and magicka classes. Like, it was going to be ridiculous. And he's like, hey, now, like, let's not nerf this because my melee mag blade needs this set. I need this or else my class isn't viable at all. And I've done melee magblade. Like, the burst combination you do on a melee magblade, it's like 40% more damage with Colurians than any other set. It's just way better. It's the only set that really makes it function. But like I told him, like, I don't mean this in a bad way, but that set is a crutch for melee Magicka Nightblades. Melee Magicka Nightblades should be getting buffs to their class. And the problem is when you have something that's that powerful, that satiates those players to where they don't ask for the buffs that they need and probably deserve for their class, they're just like, oh, I'm fine, I got Colurians. Well, if they adjust Colurians to where all of a sudden it's the best for everybody else, like, what does that leave your class? Like, it's eventually going to get taken away, and now you're stuck without your crutch, without any class buffs, without anything, and it just, class is just weaker. And so I think a lot of the things that people get upset about with these big swinging adjustments, procs, no procs, dots, no dots, it's because of class strength. They get annoyed and they get upset because their class goes from being really good to really bad because they only have a few things in their specific spec that are actually strong. And that's why I brought up that video, like, hey, maybe we should give people more utility, more skills to choose from, so that when a meta adjusts, you're just like, okay, I just got to switch this. I'll be okay. My class is still going to be fine. And it's not the backlash you currently see.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I was running around with Deltia. I don't remember if we were in a battleground or something like that. And I was on a Mag Sork, and he had brought up, man, so many people think that Mag Sorks are broken or they're just like super powerful. And I said, you know what? I kind of look at it the other way. I think that Mag Sorks are exactly what every other class should be. They should be able to hold their own in a PvE environment and parse really well. If you build them a specific way, they should be able to do really well in PvP in multiple different ways, like the ways you want to play them, whether it be a pet sork or be just a conventional built sorcerer. And they should have good durability. They should have good sustain, and their ultimate should be viable. And so I was like, I kind of feel like Mag Sork is exactly what the other classes should strive to be. That's my opinion on it. And so then you start looking at other things like Stam DK. So Stam DK doesn't have the like the blast bones or the sub assault, like the 2 or 3 second delayed burst that comes in, that lines up really well as the D swing goes off. But what Stam DK does have is Noxious Breath and Venomous Claw. If you want to apply just immense dot pressure that also applies Major Breach, and that dot pressure is straining the other person's hots, and then they start their regular rotation of the D swing, heavy attack, execute, and all of that. And here comes the take flight, resource reset, and DK dunk, So I feel like Stam DKs are in a good spot. Plus they have all that additional heals, it's just a ton of extra heals built into a Stam DK, and their class damage mitigation's nice. And so I don't know. I just think that why is that poor guy Magicka Nightblade? I totally agree. I tried to make a Nightcrawler melee Magblade, and
I'm sorry for you already.
It looked just like Nightcrawler too. That's the sad thing, was I was like, dude, this is Nightcrawler. Could not get it to work for the life of me. And it's so sad because I don't want to have to run Colurians just to be viable. And so I just had to put that on the shelf. But so I wish there was a way to actually sit down with devs and let them know, like, There's people that care about the actual true balance of the classes. We're not trying to stack the decks in our favor. I love
Yeah.
all classes, you know.
Same.
We're not trying to stack the deck towards a specific our main or anything like that. We literally want to see the best possible results for this game. And I wish there was a way that we had direct contact with these people to help make that happen, because we're out there in the field and we know exactly what's lacking. So
Yeah. So the point you brought up about Magsork, in my opinion, the only thing that I think is overperforming on Magsork would be Streak. I don't think Streak should be as cheap as it is, because it's just, it was good before. Like everything else on Magsork, I think is fine. That would be the only adjustment. But yeah, I agree with you. Like every other class should be more or less brought up to Magsork, and then we can adjust everything else. I was doing a video earlier today, and I was talking about magic and about necromancers. And necromancer has their own stuff that's needs some adjustments. But what's really cool about the necromancer kit, same thing with Magsork, all 3 ultimates are viable. Just about all of their skills are viable in one situation or another. Like you can go into a large group PvP environment and you'd be like, okay, we're fighting this specific group. We need this. Let me slot it. I have it in my kit, and you can make adjustments on the fly because the class has that kind of viability. You can only slot 10 skills, but they have so many to choose from that you can mix and match as you need, which is great. Then you go to I'm sorry for just dunking all over Magic and Nightblades right now, but other classes are that way. Like you only have a couple skills and you don't get to make those choices. It's just, this is what works best. This is what works best for me. It's either going to work or it's not. And that's it. And yeah, it would be nice if more skills were viable, like Nightblade specifically. Incap, Soul Harvest, great ultimate. I mean, I'm no complaints there, but the one in the middle tree is non-existent in PvP. It's not viable at all. And then the bottom one, Soul Tether is obviously nice, but Soul Siphon got kind of screwed over with the cast time nerf. And so nobody uses that ult anymore. You have Sorks where they have Atro, Negate, and Overload. Those are all good ultimates. Like making all 3 ultimates viable is a huge deal, in my opinion. And just doing those sorts of things to where all those classes can choose those things, just, I don't know. It makes people happier to play their class, especially when a meta has a big shift, because then they know, hey, I just got to adjust a few skills and I'll be good.
yeah. So would you take the middle 2 ultimates on a Nightblade and maybe combine those with the 3rd class, with like what was it, Soul? You use it on the bombers.
Soul Tether.
Soul Tether. Would you somehow combine the second, skills ultimates with Soul Tether and the other morph? And then I feel like Nightblade needs a ranged ultimate, some type of ranged ultimate.
That would honestly be really nice. I mean, I was trying to figure out ways, because I rank classes and I do different things, I try to come up with creative ideas that could happen. But yeah, like the Nightblade's the assassin class, and you have Magic and Nightblade, the range spec with Swallow Soul, Spectral Bow, their Execute. Why am I forgetting the name of it? Doesn't matter. Anyways, it's all ranged, right? Like their dot is ranged, all these sorts of things, but they don't have like you said, they don't have a ranged ultimate. They don't have a ranged fear or a CC. So those things you have to get up close and personal. And that's where the class kind of struggles, because you have this ranged play style, but your killing combo is melee. And you don't really have the type of tools to play in melee range on that spec. And so it's just kind of the great analogy that I heard is some classes are like, picture classes like cars, right? Like necromancers and sorcerers are like Corvettes. They're top of the line cars, and then you have like Magic and Nightblade. It's like a jalopy. It's just missing some things. So
yeah, and for a long time, like how many years you think?
2-3 years.
Yeah,
probably 3 years.
Yeah. And I don't know, I guess if you rewind back to that, did they get hit with the nerf hammer at some point? There was like a huge problem with bow gankers and stam gankers, and there was just a problem, and the class got hit. I don't even remember when it, or if it's just never got the love it's needed.
The last time like stand up Nightblade was good, in my opinion, was around Elsewhere. And that's because you could, and it wasn't even that good, but it's exactly what we're talking about. At that point in time, I was crutching on Harness Magicka and Pirate Skeleton because you could stack a ton of max Magicka, and Harness Magicka was really, really good. So I was running around with 63,000 Magicka, and I had Pirate Skeleton on, and I was hitting 25k spectral bows on people. I was just nuking people's health bars because Harness needed an adjustment. Well, when Harness got over nerfed, in my opinion, it took away a lot of the survival on Magic and Nightblade because they really needed that specific skill because they don't have any really good class heals. Like Dark Cloak's okay, but Dark Cloak was really strong, and then they nerfed that one because it was really strong, and that's basically it for class heals. And so you have to rely on rapid regen, you have to rely on healing ward and all these other sorts of things. And healing ward only really works if you have a good damage shield on the outside, and you don't have that with Harness. And yeah, that's when the class really started to struggle. And then you start building more into survival, more into sustain and survival, and then you lack the damage you need. And the 2-shot class doesn't have the damage to 2-shot anymore, and then you're just kind of there. And yeah.
I hate to see that too. I wish that they would go through, and there's other like trivial things too that people have been asking for a long time, like the Stam Whip and the Stam DK. Like, why do we have 2 Magicka morphs to whip? And that's like that's a thing, but it probably falls farther down in the list of things to do when you look at the Stam DK's kit and it's still strong and for all the reasons we already named, but Magic and Nightblade is really hurting. So, yeah.
Question for you. So I know, I think, well, when did you do it? I think it was maybe like a week or 2 weeks ago. You did a class tier list for large scale PvP.
Yes.
So when you talk about, I guess, and I know in that particular video, I think you ranked the Necros, both, Mag and Stam and Wardens as number 1. But then I guess, is it safe to say that, Sorks are probably the most preferred for no proc type stuff?
Yeah, they're definitely up there for this entire situation. It's really tough to say no to what the Mag Sork kit has because they have good damage. I think a lot of what the damage they have though is there's still quite a few people running around in heavy armor, and they're getting that 5 to 7% bonus to because people are running 5 heavy or 7 heavy because they think, oh, this is what I've always been running, and they don't realize that Sorks are just melting faces right now when you're running that kind of heavy armor. But yeah, it's a really good kit, and the survivability is obviously fantastic because of Streak. And the issue is like you don't want to adjust it too much. You don't want to completely nuke Streak, but I'm trying to going back to your question. The only other class that I think I would put close, well, I think it's as good as like Stamcrow. Stamcrow and Stamblade, I think, are up there with Mag Sork, but they're just different.
Okay, so, and I'm like tying like a couple of your videos in, and I think from that class incorporating sets to balance class, I think you made a comment that kind of stuck with me. I think you said that Necros are the best, or no, not no. That's a misquote. You said that all the other classes need to rise up to like the same type of kit that the Necro has. Is that kind of correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about asking you it either before or after the show, but could you, because obviously if you're gonna identify problems, it's also nice to have solutions. Do you have, we'll just say like Necro's like S tier, do you have a bunch of solutions in place where you can bring up all the other classes to make them equal to what a Necro brings to the table?
And if you don't, I'd like to help with that.
Because I know that would be a huge thing to tackle right now. I mean, that could be a whole separate episode that we do, or you
Yeah.
just do it on your doing your own thing. But do you already have like ideas in place on like, okay, Necro, I wouldn't make any changes there, but what would I make to a Warden to make it
Oh yeah. Yep.
same thing for each class?
Yeah, so I'm obviously a nerd when it comes to ESO. I just think about these things for fun. I don't know what's wrong with me, but that's a whole nother episode. But yeah, I don't know if the thing is like I have ideas that I think would help, but it would still take time to implement them, test them, figure it out, and like slowly move the ball in the right direction. But there's some classes you can tell, like Magic and Nightblade, for instance, they don't have a burst heal. Their kit, like you have to have so many hots on that class to survive that you lose some killing power. And even though they're like offensive kit's good, you don't have enough skills to fit on your bar because you're like, okay, well, I have to run Rapid Regen, I have to run Dark Cloak, I have to run Shadow Image, I have to run this. I have to run all these defensive skills just to survive, that now I can't fit my Execute or I can't fit a CC, and you have to make those sacrifices that other classes frankly don't. They don't have to make those sacrifices. They just have it. And yeah, you want classes to be fun, and yes, you should make choices, but the choices that you make shouldn't be like, okay, well, if I do this, I can't kill this class. It's the choices should be, okay, well, do I want a little bit more survival or do I want this? And yeah, like I think especially in the no proc thing, Magstork's a perfect example. A lot of their kit's really good. A lot of their kit is really, really good. They have 3 working usable ultimates. And you look at Nightblades, they don't. You could even look at Templars. I think Templars could see a little bit of love in that department. DKs could see a little bit, not that they need a whole lot, but they could use some things, a lot of lateral things. So when you look at some of these trees, it's like, what's your favorite class, Icy? Let's ask you that.
For PvP, Warden.
For Warden, okay. Which tree do you not use the most?
Oof. That's kind of hard because I think I have about 2 abilities from my Restos from the Resto line. Most of my abilities come from the Winter's Embrace, and then I think I have 2 abilities from the Green Balance, and then 2 abilities from the Animal Companion. So it's kind of even, but most of my abilities are from the Winter's Embrace.
Okay.
And I'm talking PvP healer perspective.
Yeah. Well, and you're on the best class for a PvP healer, so maybe this is a bad example. But yeah, like, are you using trees or are you using Resto ult? In what?
I prefer the trees in this case, but since you mentioned the Resto ult, if I was on my Templar, I would definitely use the Resto ult over the Restoring Light ultimate, because I think whenever I see anybody using the Resto ult or the Restoring Light ultimate, they're always dead right after.
Yeah, they're like a bug zapper. Everyone gathers around them and starts attacking them.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like you see some of these skills and it's like, okay, well, why aren't they used? And then those would be the ones that I would tackle. So if we're looking at Templar, which is a better example, they have, I don't remember the name of the skill. I call it clap hands, where they do the clap hand. It's a huge heal, but it's a cast time and nobody really uses it because you get interrupted, you get bashed out of it. It's a huge nuisance. I'd rework the skill. I'd make it way more usable. So what can you do at that point? Okay, well, maybe we lower the circle, heal everybody in like a 5-meter circle and make it a little bit more instant. Maybe not instant.
I would just make it mobile, kind of similar to shifting standard.
Or you could do that too. But yeah, there's multiple different ways to go about. Like, Warden's really good. I guess Warden was a bad example, but there's still just a few things in Warden that people don't use a ton of. Like the Winner's Gate, the swinging, like where you can teleport people. It's a cool it's a cool skill in theory, but do you ever really see it, or have you ever really found a good use for it? It's very, very rare. And
so I just since you mentioned that the Frozen Gate, I think it's called,
Yeah.
It is awesome, but the thing is, it'll pull people from 28 meters, which is awesome. But then if you want your allies to use the synergy, they have to be within like 10 or 15 meters, and that part blows.
Yeah.
You know, another thing too, when you're looking at classes, I do think Templar needs some love. If you were to compare a Stam Crow to a Stamplar, right? Okay, we're done. I don't even have to explain that.
Yeah,
That pretty
sorry,
much
go
summed it up.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, just look at the healing kit on a Stam Crow. You have a smart healer with your your ghost, like Spirit
Yeah.
Bender. You have a smart heal with that. You have probably the tether too, you know, whichever morph you're running on that. So you got a really small, hot, just continuous rapid fire coming in, and you have vigor, and you have rally.
Yes.
You know, like
Yep.
that is just great healing. I wouldn't say don't nerf them, bring everyone else up to their level, you know, and it's an investment on four slots. They're looking for that type of survivability or durability by purposely slotting those 4 things. Templar does not have that option.
Yeah, and they can also get away with it because blast bones hit so hard.
Yeah. Oh, like a truck, like a semi with trucks on it.
And so they're like, I don't need to equip dots. I don't need to do this because I have blast bones, and blast bones is going to hit for 10K. And yeah, exactly. And that's the cool part is like there are definitely some things on Necromancer that need adjustments, like the cost, in my opinion, of Mortal Coil. Mortal Coil being free is, I think that's ridiculous. I don't think a skill that is that good should be free.
Well, I will say, I mean, technically it's not free because you can only use it if there's a corpse on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, when you're rotating your buffs, you're like, there's always a corpse on the ground with blast bones or whatever. So just your normal rotation, you're always going to have something up. So your armor buff or your guardian or the blast bones, like there's always something on the ground. Or if the enemy drops something, but yeah, it's a unique idea. Like corpse gameplay is super unique and it's super creative, and that's why I really enjoy playing Necromancer.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose it, but the Mortal Coil is, I play a lot of Necromancer. I'll just say that Mortal Coil is just one of those things where you're like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, like, even if they took away, hypothetically, and they shouldn't, but even if they took away Mortal Coil, Necromancer has a class purge. So it's like, okay, well, if I'm getting dotted down too much, I have a class purge. I can slot this. I have a skill that gives me ulti-gen and major protection. I can slot this. They have so many good skills equipped. If you want to be a tank, the Scythe is just incredible. They have their kit is just amazing. There's a few things that I would look at, but overall, like, you look at their skills and then you look at another class and you're like, these two things aren't the same. Like this kit versus this kit, it's not even close. And that's the disappointing, well, not disappointing, but that's the thing I would look to improve on other classes, is make them more like Necromancer, make them more like Warden, to where they just have more usable skills.
Yeah. And so I've heard people actually complain, well, what about class diversity? You know, class diversity's, you know, this class should be better at this as opposed to this class. And I'm not trying to get everyone like on the same, I'm not trying to make everyone feel like they play the same way. Like when you use expunge and modify on a Stam Crow, it should have a different effect, and it should be feel differently to when you're using cleansing ritual on a Stamden or a Stamplar. You know,
Yes.
like they're two different abilities. They look differently. They function differently. They have similar results though, and they should have similar costs as well. Some classes don't even have a cleanse or a purge in their kit, and then they have to resort to a 7,000 magicka expense. Like, come on. And so I would really like to deep dive into each class and what they kind of need to, you know, be on even playing ground. So
Yeah, and that's a really good. I think that's a really good example talking about Necro and Templar purges, because it's still the same goal, removing negative effects, but they're at completely different costs, and that's what makes it so unique. Because Necromancer, you sacrifice health to remove those negative effects, and there's some issues in PvP when you're willingly sacrificing health, and so you have to pick and choose your spots, and it's a neat skill that's useful. The one returns resources, the other one purges more negative effects, and it's valuable. Like, people that use it, I don't personally use it because I don't like to willingly lower my health bar, but I wouldn't say that it's bad, and that's the great part of it. And so that's where like you really need some super creative people, because you don't want every class having the same thing. You don't want every class having the same sort of effects. I don't think every class should have purges. Some classes should survive through damage mitigation. Some should survive through healing. And when they aren't, you have to go back and look at it and be like, okay, well, what's going on with this? And how can we address this? Because when you look at the dot meta, like the current proc meta, well, not current anymore. I'm sorry. Never mind. Markarth, with all the proc dots and everything, Necromancer was good because of their healing, but they also have 15% dot mitigation as a passive. And then they have 10% damage mitigation with the Spirit Guardian. So they're already, like, even without the purge, they're taking so much less damage from dots and other incoming damage than any other class in the game. And so their survivability is just, okay, well, I can negate a lot of this, and then if I need to, I can still purge it if I want to fit this on my bar. And when you see like 15% dot mitigation with 10% from Spirit Guardian, you're like, no wonder when I'm on a Stam DK and I try to fight a Stam Necro, their health bar doesn't move when I hit them with my dots and everybody else is melting, because they just have so much mitigation. And yeah, there's a lot of passives you can look at. There's a lot of skills in that way. And you can go, okay, well, what can we give them passively to really like buff up their kit and make them strong, just a stronger, more competitive class? Because the game's more fun when more classes are more competitive, in my opinion. And so I dislike when I'm in a meta and I know I'm going to beat somebody just because they're on a specific class. Like, they could be the best player, but they're just at a disadvantage. Like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. I'm on this class, you're on that class, you're going to lose. So
yeah, you might be onto something there too. Rewinding back to the sorcerer thing, if you think about at least the way I play sorcerer, most of the abilities on my kit are class abilities.
Yeah.
I'm not relying on a Destro staff skill line, but now let's just real quickly in your head think of all the other classes and both magic and stamina version, and how many of them rely on the weapon skill line as opposed to their class skill line because there's not viable primary spammables or executes or things like that. Like, that might be where part of the problem is. The sorcerer's class kit is just perfect, and
Exactly.
the other classes need that. They need it. So
do you guys play much Mag DK?
I just did a Scorpion
I'm
teaser.
sorry.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
So the cool thing about Mag DK for me is it's solid. It's had some bad patches like every other class, but it's always been fun because it's so unique. It's so unique because there's nothing else that plays like it. And just about every single one of your skills are in the class skill lines. Just about every single one. Yep. And that's awesome, because when you see a Mag DK in open field, you know what a Mag DK is. And it's its own thing. And that's really like what we were just talking about. That's a really cool part about it. Same thing with Magplar. Magic Templar is the exact same way. A lot of their class kit is all Magic Templar abilities. Same thing with Warden. Very rare that you'll see like a Magden running many skills outside of the skill line, like Icy said. A lot of the Magicka classes are pretty fleshed out, and then you go to like Stamsork. I mean, Stamsork has Crystal Blast now, and they did the bound armaments there. They're slowly incorporating things. But 2 years ago, they didn't have bound armaments or crystal weapon. It was just a D-swing class, and you're using all weapon skill lines. And it's good that they did those things. And I'm not ragging on Stam. I just wanted to bring it up as an example. The more they do stuff like that, the more that they can flesh out the classes, the better it's going to be. And now you're seeing some really creative, like sword and board and dual wield Stamsorks again, because of crystal weapon being a viable spammable. And that build variety just kind of fleshes out as you add more things to their kit like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I guess for either for PvP or PvE, all classes, not that they should all be the same, but should they all meet a certain criteria? And by that I mean, I think if you look at, let's just say, well, you know, the Warden, Animal Companion, you could kind of interpret that as like the DPS part. Then the Winter's Embrace, kind of like the tank part, and then the Green Balance, kind of like the healer part. And then when you look at the Necro, you know, you have the I don't even know the Necro class names. I think it's like Bone Tyrant, something else and something else. I don't know. But you know, one has a lot of healing type stuff, one has more tank type stuff, and then one's got more DPS type stuff. Should all the classes should all of the classes, like their individual class within that class, I think people are making or understand what I'm saying. Should they all kind of be broken up that way, where they have like one section for DPS, one section for tank, one section for healing, and then equally should they all be viable in terms of, you know, what, if you're playing a Necro, Warden, Nightblade, Templar, Sork, DK, should you be able to do a melee mag, whatever, a range mag, whatever, a melee stam, whatever? Should you be able to do that in all these classes?
That's an interesting thought.
Like,
I've
if you were
never,
gonna retool the kits, should you try to retool them so that they are viable to some level or somewhat, you know, should they all be viable with, if you're retooling it? Is that what you should aim for?
I see. It's an interesting. I've never personally been in the person that believes that a class should be able to have everything. I've always believed, like, so the original developers that created the game, they're like, Nightblades are the stealthy rogue, they're the assassins, and then Dragon Knights are the wear you down, beat you up class, and like everybody had their own specific thing, and that's how they kind of kept them. And this new developer that the new developers that came out 2 years ago, they're like, you know what, we want everybody to be able to play their own class their way. We want to provide more skills and abilities to allow people to do that. And I can agree with that. I just wouldn't make it uniform. And so, like, I think what they do, and I could be wrong, I'll have to think about the kits a little bit, but they have their offensive kit, like a defensive kit, and then either like a healing or a utility kit. I feel like that's kind of how they do it. Or like they do DPS, tank, healer. And I think that's how they kind of split everything up. So if you look at the Necro skill line, they have all offensive skills, and then they have tank skills, and then they have healing skills. And I think you can still do that for all classes. It's just you don't make them the same way. I don't think you give everybody a purge. I don't think you give everybody cloak or anything like that. I think you want to really keep up to date with the identity of the class. Like Mag DK, in my opinion, is the perfect idea of like class identity. You know what a Mag DK is. You know what a Mag Sork is when you see it, and just kind of playing into that theme. Okay, well, what is a Mag DK? They're fire. They're supposed to be more stalwart, holding their ground. Well, okay, well, we have this tank skill line. What can we do to allow them to play and give them more utility in this regard? What can we do to help them here if they need help? And so this is a roundabout way of saying it, but yeah, it's tough because you really need somebody super creative to be able to come up with skills that are not only unique and would go in line with like the theme of a class, but also would fit in that type of role and not throw things off kilter and all those other sorts of things. So, yeah, I guess my answer is yes. I guess they should have some sort of role, be able to fulfill any of the major things: healing, DPS, tanking, like they want them to do. It's just, yeah, some classes are going to be better because that's what their strengths are.
Do you think if we threw in a third morph to all the skills, we'd be able to achieve some of that
I think it
somewhere?
would. I think it would help with some utility. I think some skills just need to be rehashed, like the malevolent offering that Nightblades have, where you sacrifice your own health to heal other people. I would just rework that because that was like their blood magic skill line, and once again, you're willingly sacrificing a ton of health to heal other people, and you can't continue to heal people if you're dead. So, so it's just a really weird skill to use, and yeah, there's just some stuff where you could do that, and then other skills like adding a third skill line to where you could put Stam Whip on DK would be fantastic, because Molten and Flame Lash are both good in their own unique ways. I would hate to take one of them away from DKs because they're good for different reasons, and
Combine
having
them.
more, yeah,
Yeah,
having more,
a different,
more options better.
Yeah, like a mini version of both of them combined together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say something about the stamina whip thing. So, when you think about this, I guess like the lava whip in general, you kind of, I would think of it being magic based, but then, well, I mean, would we just picture like an orange whip, or just like cost stamina, or would it the stamina would be green now? How
Yeah, I
how
mean,
exactly do you envision that, or would it just be a like say 1,000 cost Magica whip
so
that does
okay.
physical damage?
All right, so you guys are getting me a little fired up because Stam Whip's one of my
Yeah.
things that gets me fired up. So here's my thought. So you have Templars, right? Templars have biting jabs and puncturing sweeps. It's the same DPS skill. You just have a stamina and magic morph. Nightblades, you have concealed weapon, you have surprise attack. Necromancers, you have flame skull, you have venom skull. Sorks, you have crystal weapon or crystal frags. Every other class, just about every other class. Let me go through it. Birds, stamina magica, sub assault, deep fissure. Just about every other class has a stamina and magica morph on the same skill. And it makes a lot of sense. And where DK is different is because, yeah, one skill's better for PvE and the other one's better for PvP. And if you remove one of those, you're going to upset a bunch of people. And so I think that's why they did it. I think they didn't want to upset the Power Lash community by removing it, and they didn't want to upset the PvE Molten Whip community by removing that. But it doesn't make any sense to me if you're a new player and you see all these other skills with stamina and magica morphs, and then you go to DK and you're like, okay, well, where's the stamina morph for my DPS? Oh, the CC for magica. The other morph is the stamina DPS skill. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And on top of that, I'm not a fan of the animation. I'm not a fan of the animation at all. And it's just Mag DK, you hit it out of the park. Like, that's how I look at it. You hit Mag DK out of the park with its style, like with what it looks like stylistically. And they decided to go the route with Stam DK, like, oh yeah, instead of them doing fire dots, they're going to do poison dots. Well, why not go the whole way? Why not just have it be the poison thing? So you got poison whip, your leap hits for poison damage. Why not just let them have poison? And then you can come out with poison sets to make the DK be the poison class so that they can actually build into it. So then all of a sudden, other sets like Swamp Raider, like, it's really tough to run a build around like a set like Swamp Raider. But if you made everything poison for a Stam DK and you saw Swamp Raider, you'd be like, that's a Stam DK set. Perfect. That's going to go right on my class. I'm going to be able to fit into it, and it's going to be mine. Like, other classes can kind of fit and run other things, but this set's for me. I don't know if you guys can hear my daughters. They're a little upset right now. But yeah, like, that's how I look at it. And I'm not saying I don't even think that the stam spammable is that bad. To be honest, it's not bad. It's just stylistically, it just didn't make any sense, and that's why I got a little disappointed about it.
Right. One leap does flame damage. One leap does physical damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I agree with that too. They should be like, so flame damage on one, cool. Poison damage on the other, great. So
Exactly.
yeah. Another thing too, I guess, while we're talking about moving some things around, showing Templars love, I'd like to see their defensive rune move farther up the skill line. They don't get their defensive rune until level 30 or 40, and that during this meta right now where damage is aplenty, that's probably not gonna help them out much.
Yeah, I don't create characters like you do, but I have a newer account on PC, and I would do low level BGs on there, trying to level skill lines and get the free daily experience. And yeah, like the rune rally's really rough starting out sometimes. It takes a little bit of time to get it's not too bad for vigor anymore, but vigor used to be a huge pain. And yeah, like it's tough. Like you want a PvP in your class and you want to go fight against your peers, and the survival skills are just not there. And you're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I guess it just die now.
How would you guys rearrange those skills for the Templar and we'll say the two-hand abilities?
I personally would put the defensive ability second on the healing tier or whatever. Because isn't it, I can't remember, is Honor the Dead or the Burst Heal, that's on its own separate skill line? It's been a while since I
think
go look. I think so.
Yeah, I think Breath of Life is the first one on the Restoring Light passive tree.
And then all the way at the bottom of that one, right, is the defensive rune and cleansing ritual, then defensive rune.
Yeah, cleansing ritual is 4, and then the restoring focus one that you're talking about that gives major resolve, that's 5.
Yeah. So it looks to me like if we were to go back to the conversation we were talking about with one skill line should be damage oriented type stuff, one skill line should be tank like oriented stuff, and then the last one would be healing. If they followed that rule with the Templar, then they could be able to, one of the first abilities you pick up is defensive rune on one skill tree, the tank skill tree,
exactly,
the heal on the other one, and so that would probably be the
and then sweeps on the DPS.
Bingo.
Away you go.
Yeah, and you could jump right into low level BG and not get your your tits blown off like Sir said in one of his videos, because I only have 2 tits and
yeah. I got nothing. Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
It was so funny. So that's probably what I would do though. Like if I think we probably, one DPS skill line, one tank skill line, and one healing skill line. And if you follow that recipe, then the Templars would be good to go right out the gate at level 10. So
I think the other thing, really quick, just tack onto that helps the mag specs. You could apply it to stam specs by just having stamina morphs of the Magicka heals, because the one of the big issues for a lot of stam starting out newer kit players is rally. They made it a lot easier to get rally and vigor, but I still think it would be great if there were heals in the class kit outside of the weapon skill lines and outside of the assault skill line. Yeah. So, like, I'm not saying they have to be like, it's not that stamina Templars need Magicka Breath of Life. They don't need Magicka level Breath of Life to where they're healing back to full with 15k heals or anything like that. It's just, it would be nice to have something there, something competitive to rally, to say like, hey, yeah, we do have vigor, but we do have this that you can fit. And yeah, it doesn't heal as much, but if you're making a new character, you got it right away. You're good to go. Yeah. And yeah, I think those little things would help quite a bit. And going back to what Icy said about a third skill, I think that would be huge. Like, you keep the Magicka ones, you just provide them more for stam, and you don't overtune it. You just make it so it's there, and then it makes grinding easier, makes leveling easier, it makes PvP a little bit easier to do initially until you get the better stuff, if rally or vigor is better, and you then get to play within your class kit, the class skills. And yeah.
So here's a question. Let's look at that. Well, real quickly, while we're talking about balancing classes for low level people, sorcerers in game, super dangerous.
Yeah.
But sorcerers leveling a sorcerer, and I've done this, I've leveled 90 plus characters. Leveling a sorcerer, you don't get access to a shield, okay, like through light armor, the annulment or whatever, and you don't get a class shield until later, maybe level 30. It's really rough to run around in light armor trying to get your light armor up enough to get annulment so you have your first shield. So you're running around just getting blown up, you know, in a light armor sorcerer until you get access to that, and you don't have access to streak either. And so
the pet heal isn't the first skill either, is it?
Right.
I want to say it's like the third or fourth.
It's a third, the third in the line, so you don't get that. And so you got one pet running around, you know, chasing things and maybe, you know, absorbing some of the damage for you and CCing, but no shields until like say level 30, and no heal until say level 30. And so it's really rough leveling sorcerer early. And now they do come full circle and get everything towards the end of the game, but some minor changes there I think would be in line. Yeah,
I could get behind that too.
I was going to say something else, but I forgot because I'm old. So, okay. So, Flames of Ambition is here. Your initial thoughts, just as a whole, we'll rewind and jump back up to the top of our list here.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on the CP tree and where damage is at? How do you feel about things?
This is going to be a pretty hot take coming from me, but this is my favorite patch in 2 years. I'm thoroughly like enjoying Flames of Ambition for everything I've done so far, which is just Cyrodiil PvP. I think the CP changes, I don't know enough to know if things need an adjustment, which is kind of cool. Like nothing's glaringly standing out as, oh my gosh, like this is ridiculous. But everybody's taking damage, everybody's doing damage, everybody's dying. PvP is just fantastic. And yeah, like they incorporated 3600 CP, and I'm running around with like, I think I'm up to 820 now. And I'm running across people with 16, 19. I saw someone with 1900 CP yesterday. I don't feel like I'm at a severe disadvantage. And so I feel like they did a really good job making the CP tree more of a lateral move rather than a vertical move. Because in the past, 400 CP, like if you were a 400 CP character fighting in 810, there's a pretty big disparity there that it's really tough to overcome. Like you need a good build and you need some serious skills relative to your opponent in order to outweigh that. And it doesn't feel like that right now, which is really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's I'm a little fearful for Cyrodiil. I'm still experiencing procs and BGs and procs in Imperial City, but
yeah,
I'm a little fearful for Flames of Ambition Cyrodiil when procs are brought back into the equation, because we're doing just fine on damage and people dying right now without, because resistances have been lowered. So I'm a little worried what happens when those gates are opened back up. So
yeah, when Malakath makes its triumphant return.
Oh, it's going to be rough. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it's going to be really hard to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the next patch is, what their balance change, because they said there's going to be balance. They're going to have some changes for proc sets. So we'll have to see if it's going to be enough or if it's not going to be enough. But yeah, I mean, CP 2.0 basically flipped the entire game on its head, and I think it's in a good way. Like they said they took 2 years to work on this, and you can tell. In my opinion, I think they did a great job. Like I thought it was. I don't know what you guys think. I figured I'd ask you guys, but at first I thought it was kind of weird that the entire green tree was just all overland PvE. And then I thought about it more and I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, that's so smart that they actually provided buffs for people, just quality of life stuff, traveling from way shrine to way shrine, picking stuff up, generating more gold. Like, for an end game player, none of that was a big deal. And so I was like, oh, no toys for me. You know, like that was my first thought. And then I thought about it more and I'm like, for a newer player to get this stuff, like that has to be so nice, knowing that like they don't have the kind of gold and they're probably going to be farming gear. And so they're going to be doing the chest farms and stuff. And now this will just help. I thought it was, I think they did a great job.
I will say I am a little bit salty about that green tree because they put in a whole star for fall damage, but they had nothing to do with, they didn't include nothing for swim speed.
It's true.
And,
I mean,
and let's be honest, you do a lot of swimming in Overland to get to places.
Yeah, I mean, you can double dip as a wood elf with fall damage, but you don't get a double dip as an Argonian.
Yeah,
with swim speed.
And the advanced stats don't even show you anything on what your swim speed actually is. So I'm really miffed.
Where's our water mounts at? Where's our water?
Oh, dude, that would be so awesome now
Seahorse?
that you mention it.
Yeah, like you're like Poseidon, stand 1 foot on 2 different dolphins,
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So since we're talking about the CP tree, do you think? Well, I know I did some calculations. So
Yeah.
it looks like if you were gonna run, say, whatever build, it looks like you only need about 1200 CP if you were gonna collect all of the passives that are non-slottable.
Okay.
And how do you think that would compare theoretically versus somebody who had slottables on their top? But both people are fighting. One guy has slottables, the other one doesn't, but they have all the same passives. Because at the end of the day, I think to collect 4 slottables and all of the nodes or all of the stars that are not slottable, which everyone will have access to once they get to about, I think it was 2200 CP ish.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think that's gonna how much do you think that's gonna matter? Somebody with slottables and someone without.
I feel
So
like
I'm
the slottables are super strong, so it would
So
be
I'm just gonna say you really brought the questions today. Yeah, I've been meaning to make this video, and it's taking me. My procrastination has held me back in one way, and then subjecting somebody to an hour worth of testing is also something that I don't want to do.
Well,
But
you're releasing a video a day right now. Come on,
Yeah.
man. Step up your game.
well, yeah, this testing would be ridiculous. But I want to eventually do a test where I input CP versus somebody with like the current CP amount, like let's say 1500. So they have whatever their allocated CP is with resistances, and I put in 810 CP amount of damage, whatever that is, and then we compare 810 versus 1200 versus 1600, like how much of a boost you're going to get. A lot of the passive stuff, like the non passive equip stuff, isn't a lot. It's like 150 weapon damage, it's like 1500 stam, 600 impen. I forget how much pen you can get. It's not a ton, and I think that's the best part about the CP tree is you can have all this extra CP and it is going to make your character better, but it doesn't make your character unstoppable compared to somebody that has like 400 less CP than you. And so the passives are really cool too. Like some I think are stronger than others, but it really comes down to how you play your character. So as an example, I think none of us are really super well versed in the CP tree yet, but there's a passive I've been using that gives you 15% more crit damage when you flank an enemy. And I was talking to my buddies and they're like, dude, why are you running that? I'm like, dude, it's like Camo Hunter. It's exactly like Camo Hunter. Anytime you flank an enemy to proc the Camo Hunter off balance to get the Minor Berserk, it's the same thing. It synergizes really well. And they're like, holy crap, I've been so used to running Malakath I forgot that was a thing. and like there's that sneaky stuff that kind of, I don't know, it just kind of depends on how you play and everything. And so it's tough for me to say what stuff's better. A lot of the passes are really good. I would say gun to my head, if I had to make a choice, I personally am taking the passives over the just like slotted, like equipped to like put points into the skills and let it, like, I'm going for the 4 passives first with my 810 CP because I have to make a choice. That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that passive is called Backstabber.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I know it's
15% crit damage is a lot. That's a lot of crit damage.
Yeah, I know my friends who are PvEers, that's like one of their staples.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure. Nightblades too. It's part of the reason why Nightblades are hitting really hard right now.
That and Impen got cut. Yeah.
What do you guys think about the Impen change? Because I think it's great.
I'm all for it. It's nice being able to see people die, and including myself. You know, like I'm getting killed in situations where I wouldn't have gotten killed before, and so it makes me have to play a little bit sharper.
Exactly. Yep, I feel the same way. I don't have any ridiculous clip or anything yet, but I'm enjoying the gameplay so much more. Because if I make a mistake and I die, like, you can tell because you die immediately after you make a mistake. You're like, oh, whoops. I guess I won't do that anymore. I got a little bit too far in the open, and I took 2 10K frags to the teeth. So I'm done.
Yeah, I like that you can't have it all right now, even at 13.5 CP or whatever. You can't have it all. Before, I could be a Nord. I could put points into heavy armor focus or medium armor focus and spell shield and crit resistance, and I could put points into hardy and elemental defender and thick skin, so I could be in a medium armor cap resistance build with an extra 10% mitigation across the board on all different damage sources, and I go over to the mitigation tab on ESO build editor, and it says you've got 90% damage mitigation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not that anymore. So I think
not even close. Yeah,
not even close. So like you were saying, didn't you see a sorcerer or a mag class using Fighters Guild they were using a Dawnbreaker and it was hit super hard? Yeah.
So I dueled a Magic Necromancer, and he hit me with a hard hitting Dawnbreaker, and it really caught me off guard because the Dawnbreaker dot's good on a Necro. It is, but it's a physical damage ability. We're in CP, so I'm like, whatever. But yeah, he chunked my health bar pretty hard. I'm like, holy crap. Like, I can't just take this lightly because he'll kill me if I do. My buddy Lobo, he was told that one of his buddies put Magic a Curse on their Stamsork, and so he tried it out. He's like, yeah, I'm going to put Curse on my Stamsork. We'll see what happens. He was hitting on average 4K curses on a Stamsork, and he hit up to an 8,000 curse on his Stamsork. and yeah, some of that stuff's really interesting. And I'm hearing this, and I'm like, man, are hybrids viable right now? Do I get a theory craft a hybrid once Pelinals comes back? Like, I might have to.
You don't even need Pelinals right now, because with Clever Alchemist and New Moon together, you can hit 7K weapon damage. But if you look at your character sheet, you got 5,500 spell damage. Do you know what 5,500 spell damage does on a Haunting Curse?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, how many sorcerers do you run into that have 5,500 spell damage? Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe more now, but yeah. So that's the thing is, hybrids. We're there. Hybrids are a thing, and I think nobody has their footing under them just yet with the CP. Like, you're discovering all these cool new things and how to kind of niche down on what exactly you're trying to do, but there's going to be some crazy stuff coming out probably 2 months from now as everybody figures it out. Yeah.
I'm excited for it. outside of playing and enjoying the game myself, seeing what other content creators come up with for builds is so cool. Like to see like what route they go, like what you do with your themed builds and stuff. Not many people do those things, and so to see them, like to see people enjoy them is just it's a really cool thing within the ESO community itself. And so, yeah, if hybrids are actually more viable, you're going to see a lot of people that have been trying to pump out hybrids actually like make competitive ones, and I can't wait. I can't wait. That sounds awesome to me. So
Christopher ESO is going to have a heyday because I know hybrids always his thing, his strong suit.
Yeah. I'm gonna probably have to hit the notification bell on his channel just in case I don't, just in case.
Yeah. Well, it'd be better to see what he's out there running around on instead of running into it.
Yeah.
Get blindsided by it.
So I think we kind of all know what hybrids are, but what would I guess what would I guess when you say hybrid, I just think like your Thor build where you prime them with Haunted Curse and then you dizzy swing them down. Is that kind of like, I guess, how would you hybrid like other classes, kind of like that?
So Christopher did them a couple years ago. He had hybrid on each class, if I remember correctly. So he was stacking like, I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but I think he was stacking Clever Alchemist with Pelinals. And so on a Stamplar, he was using like crit rush stamina based abilities for damage, and then he was utilizing Honor the Dead for his heals. And that was really cool because when he popped that Clever Alchemist and he had 5k weapon damage, like his Honor the Dead heals were healing for a ton, and he had a ton of weapon damage because Stamplar had a bunch of damage at that point in time. So it was always, you could do it that way. Like a lot of the classes, it'll come down to like, you'll use the Magicka defensive stuff, but I suppose on a Stam DK, you could do Vigor Rally and then Whip. Like that would actually be pretty fun. I don't know. I think that's the best part is we don't really know what will happen with the hybrids because none of us have really played them, but somebody's going to get the ball rolling. And it'd be pretty cool if at some point hybrids actually became meta. Like if that was the strongest thing you could run, that'd be a pretty fun patch to be in.
Yeah, because I think that's kind of adds to my confusion a little bit, because is a hybrid more of somebody who uses a mix of both weapon and spell damage, like physical and magic, or is it just, are they using, say, magic damage abilities and then stamina utility, or stamina damage abilities and then magic utility? Is that kind of what is more of what you would anticipate for a hybrid type of character?
I feel like a lot of them are just really unique. Because I know, so my buddy Zdan, he ran a hybrid Stamp Sork, and so he was using Curse. So in the same way, like Necros and Wardens had that delayed burst, he was using it with Curse, and so he'd apply the Curse, and then he'd go use stamina abilities, and he'd de-swing them down, and it was actually really effective. I guess it just depends on the kit. Like some of them will use like stamina based abilities for healing, and some of them will use Magicka, and some like it just, I guess it really depends on what the kit layout is. I am not well versed in the hybrid arena to really know what everybody or like what people might lean to. So I just remember the ones from a couple years ago, and yeah, that's all I'm drawing my knowledge on.
If we're talking CP environment, in the middle blue tree, there are 265 weapon and spell damage slottables that you could get points. You need roughly about 1200, 1300 CP to reach all of this. And then if you go into one of the little purple nodes and go to the second page, you increase your offensive penetration, which would increase it for both Magicka and spell damage, and then you need to branch out both left and right, and you can get another 100 weapon or magical damage to all the different elemental effects, and 100 into all the different martial effects. And so there's that, and then there's another location that on the top right hand corner that increases all your different damage types by up to 10%. And so for me, if I were going to do a hybrid, I'd make sure I'd get the 165, and then
Yeah, definitely.
additional 100 on both, and then go specifically into the damage in the top right. And then it just comes down to, making sure it's viable. I had actually on my Scorpion, I was running a hybrid type setup because I'm using dual wield, and I thought, man, Magicka DK's costs are super high. It's very hard to sustain on a Mag DK.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what if I could offset that cost penalty by running some extra stamina damage, noxious breath and rending slashes or something like that. 2 of my damage kits, one of them now applies major fracture. And so the only thing is I'm doing a themed build, and I didn't want to be blowing green fire on or literally the only reason I haven't done it. But if you could look past that, I don't know, I might actually do that. It really interests me to make hybrids. I think that's probably the differentiating thing on a hybrid too, is you need at least one damage ability from both the martial and the magical side of line, right? Because in that moment you're truly a hybrid, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough for me because I can see people using defensive. Like I would consider a Templar that uses D-swing, like the 2H skill line offensively, but then has Purify and Breath of Life. I consider that a hybrid too.
Yeah, it's true.
But I don't know. Like I think that's the best part is like we're talking about this unknown territory that now that I'm actually thinking about it a little bit, it could actually be pretty not only possible but actually viable right now. Especially with the different armor weights and everything. Because like people aren't stacking. Not too many people are stacking 5 light, 5 medium. Well, people are stacking 5 medium, but 5 light or 5 heavy anymore. So you're getting like these 3/3/1s and all these other sorts of things. It's like that's kind of conducive for a hybrid. So
yeah, just think a Sork in 5 medium, getting that extra weapon damage and then putting Pellinels on it and stacking spell damage. You could probably you might be able to hit a 8k spell damage sorcerer. That's scary.
The hybrid I've always wanted to do on like a Stam Sork before they had Crystal Weapon and Boundless. I wanted to be able to curse in Mage's Wrath and then D-swing Dawnbreaker. And so then you have the curse delayed with the D-swing Dawnbreaker, and then you have the execute explosion. I always thought that would be really fun, and then I wussed out and never did it.
Well, now you can.
Yeah.
So you heard it first here, folks. It's his build coming out in a week from now.
We'll see what happens.
Grim, didn't they change Thracian several months ago where it does spell and weapon damage now?
Yeah, it does spell and weapon damage. It's a 1250 equivalent at 50 stacks. So yeah.
And with the health changes, you could probably run that again now too.
Yeah. There's a lot of builds that you could put that on. So the whole thing is 50 stacks is a lot of stacks to get to, and if you're a sorcerer, you don't like having 40% reduced shields. Like you could build to offset the 6k health that you're going to lose at 50 stacks, but losing 40% of your shields is a no-go probably. So you'd need to be on a class that could take the beating. So
it's also, so I got really excited about the Thracian change because they got rid of the verbiage when you die, the stacks go away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I farmed Thracian and I'm like, I'm going to have 6,000 spell damage on a Mag DK. Let's go. And got all excited and I got my stacks and I went into PvP, and after my first death, all my stacks disappeared. And I got I got really disappointed. I'm like, oh man, I have to kill 50 things before I PvP every time I die. I die a lot. I die a lot in PvP. I can't do this. And so then I got disappointed and I had to take them off. But yeah, if they ever got rid of that, or instead of like just reduced it, like maybe when you die you lose 10 or 15, and so you don't have to lose all the stacks, then I think it would be more PvP viable. But yeah, 50 stacks, it's like killing every ad on 2.5 resources, something like that. Like it's a lot of ads to kill just to get into PvP. So
yeah. And did you do that? Did you lose the stacks jumping from PvE to PvP?
yes.
Yeah. So, and even on some of my best BGs, I wouldn't hit max stacks until like 2 minutes left in the BG. So like from a PvP standpoint, I totally like they could probably afford to take it down to 30 stacks or something like that, and then you lose 10 every time you die. That might be cool.
Yeah. It'd be a lot less brutal, I guess is the way to say it.
Do you get more stacks when you kill a player?
Or you could do that.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Yeah, like 2
5 stacks per person you kill or something.
Yeah, I think 5 stacks. So then after 10 kills, you'd be
whatever
killing it.
number. Yeah, that actually wouldn't be bad either.
You're already taking a negative to the health and a negative to the shield size and stuff like that. Like they gotta maybe rewind that a little bit, but
yeah.
So let's talk about your video. This build will still exist. I love the way that you approach that. Could you kind of give us a synopsis of what that video was about, and then we'll dive into that one?
Yeah. So I think this is probably the most interesting one. So long story short, there was an infinite mist high health recovery build that existed that was almost unkillable outside of like 5 or 10 people just beating on you. Like it was almost unkillable. I kited a 20 man for like 2 or 3 minutes in a tower just in misform, not losing anything. And it would, like, you look at it and you're just like, okay, this is pretty broken. And we were during the PTS, and I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to hopefully get it adjusted because stuff shouldn't work that way, in my opinion. They nerfed major protection from 30% down to 10%. All these major buffs got majorly destroyed, and they went after all these forms of mitigation. And then with misform, you have 75% damage mitigation, which in that case it's free. And so you're just basically saying, okay, I have free infinite 75% damage mitigation whenever I want. On top of that, I'm going to have 4,500 to 6K health recovery. And that kind of health recovery with that kind of damage mitigation basically means you just don't die. And yeah, it was getting popularized on a few different platforms, and it's just one of those things where it was just a matter of time. And so I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to get it adjusted, but I didn't. I've had this happen in the past where I've talked about things that I know, like there's a difference between strong and broken. And I know some of this is subjective, but what I consider broken is not having a counter. So if you fight, hypothetically, if you guys fight my Stanblade does damage. It can cloak, it's got good recovery, but you can kill it. If you can't do something to a class because there's something to it that's happening that like there's just no counter, then it probably shouldn't exist in that way. And so like examples, dodge roll used to not have a cost increase, and so you used to have medium armor builds back in the day dodge rolling all over Cyrodiil through 24-man zergs where people couldn't hit them because they're all single target abilities, and you're not hitting a dodge rolling Nightblade with single target abilities. So they were literally just kiting through zergs, and so they put a cost increase on dodge roll. They put a cost increase on streak for the same reason, because like a mag sork at that point in time could face tank 10 people, and if 3-4 more people showed up, they could just get out because streak didn't wasn't punishing. So you could just streak endlessly away and reset the fight. And then by the time anybody caught up to you, you had full resources and they didn't, and they died. So, and then they had infinite block, where you could like perma block, which they also fixed because you could reduce the cost on that down so low to where stamina regen from constitution outweighed the cost of block. And so you just had people perma blocking against 10, 15, 20 people. And so those defensive mechanics, in my opinion, are broken. And so when I saw the permanent misform stuff, I'm like, I want to get this adjusted, but they haven't been adjusting stuff for a while. And when you look at like werewolves, for instance, like the really strong werewolf setups have been out for 8 or 9 months now. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, if I post this in its entirety with its enchants, with everything in its full thing, yes, it's ripping the Band-Aid off, but they're not really fixing anything right now either. And so what if we have to go through 9 months of unkillable werewolves as well as 9 months of unkillable vampires, and I've literally introduced something into PvP that just doesn't die? And I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to share everything. I think it makes sense to just talk about it. That way it doesn't get abused, and maybe we can have this middle ground to where instead of something that abusive existing in PvP, maybe it can get talked about, it can get exposed, and it can get adjusted. And on the off chance if it doesn't create another werewolf situation where every other person is an unkillable werewolf zerging down people in PvP. So that's why I did it in the way that I did it. And I got quite a few messages in that video. Some people were not happy, but yeah, that's why I did it.
They were not happy that you showed it, or not happy that you called it out as it being broken, or what was the...
They were not happy that I didn't share it. So they wanted the details, and I got some... I'm not going to say the words that were said, but yeah, if you guys want to go check out that video and go read the comments, some of the comments are highly amusing. Some people got very, very upset about it, that I didn't share everything.
The joke's on them. You released a video just a couple days ago on how-to guide on recreating any build. Come on, people.
Yeah. No, that's why I did that video. Yeah, I don't know. I'm the guy that likes to share builds. I like to go through everything, and if there's a counter, like, hey, Grim just came out with this awesome mag DK build. Like, how do you counter it? Well, like, he's lacking in this department. There's something he's sacrificing, so you have to exploit this. Like, yeah, maybe it's hard because he's got a strong build, but you can do this. There's no exploiting infinite misform or countering infinite misform. And that was the issue. And so I've personally introduced a broken setup into PvP before because I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and get it exposed and get it fixed. And I did it during the PTS, and then it went live. And then my buddies got zerged down by that build. And it was one of those things where it was a unique setup. And not that somebody else couldn't have come up with it, but it was set up in a very unique way. Like, you could tell it was probably mine. Like, like Christopher's ghost build. If you saw like a Stamplar running crit rush and misform, it's probably Christopher's ghost build, right? That was kind of like this. It was very unique and it was very effective, and it was broken defensively. And I had people message me and they're like, hey man, like, one of my buddies, he's still, like, I remember him saying this. He goes, hey man, like, we're friends and everything, but screw you for posting that build. And he didn't say screw. And so like that stuff stuck with me. Like, I want to provide strong builds, and I know some of it's subjective, but I don't want to incorporate something that doesn't have a counter. And if it doesn't have counterplay to it, I'm not posting it, because it's, in my opinion, that's too strong. And like, that's something that shouldn't exist. And I'm not taking any joy out of playing it. Like, once I did I played that Magplar build for 2 hours to get clips. I hopped off of it. I stopped playing it. When I got my clips for my werewolf, I did the same thing. And people are like, you didn't post the werewolf build for the same reason. I'm like, exactly. So yeah.
This problem, this conundrum wouldn't exist if we had a special line to the president that we, that we could jump on the phone and say, Mr. President, I've discovered something that is extremely broken and we need to get it addressed, and somehow they put it on their agenda. And it's not like we use that phone too often or the president stops picking it up, right?
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be great to just have that and say, because the alternative is exactly what you're doing right now and what I'm going to have to do too, and what Grim Hollow did with his werewolf build is we're going to have to put it out there into the universe and show everybody how broken it is, and then there's going to be a flood of people going to the forums complaining about it until something's done about it, when all of that could be avoided if the phone number were shared with just a select few people, and they'd pick up the phone on the other end and say, we'll look into it, thank you. And do you have any ideas, on what we could do to fix it? Because we're feeling it, right? We're experiencing it, we're living it. And so here's what I would do to adjust it. So
exactly. And it's good that you brought up Grim Hollow. I forgot that you actually had him on a podcast. That's great. Yeah, I know for a fact that he posted that werewolf build to get it adjusted. Like that's what he wanted to do. He didn't want people running around on unkillable werewolf builds. Like that wasn't the goal. The goal was like, hey, this is stupid that it exists like this. We should fix it. And so he's done what a lot of people, myself included, have done, where you rip the Band-Aid off, you say, you know what, let the community go nuts with it and see what happens. And the community went nuts with it. The community definitely did. There were complaints on the forums about it. There's been complaints all over the place. And ZeniMax did nothing for 9 months. And that it's to no fault to Grim or any other content creator, like to post this stuff in the hopes of getting it fixed, because it's not our job to like balance the meta or like subjectively say the meta shouldn't be this way. But at the same time, like for me, it was just kind of hard because it's like, if I introduce this, we're going to have werewolves and vampires potentially. Like, I don't know if I want to be in Cyrodiil if there's werewolves and vampires that I can't kill and everybody's one or the other.
Yeah, is there any way we could just
fun.
Let them fight each other? That'd be great.
Just let them not kill each other. Yeah. And that's where I was kind of sitting. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm just going to show it. I'm not going to share everything. I literally talked about everything. We could talk about it now because it doesn't exist anymore. It got adjusted, but it was Alessian, backbar endurance, 3 reduced infused cost and spell cost reduction glyphs, and Zon, Vatishran, Destro, and Malakath. And so you'd have the Constitution passive from Heavy, and the rune on Templar allowed you to infinitely misform around. You could have over 4,500 health recovery, over 5k in the new CP if it didn't get adjusted, if the health recovery didn't get adjusted. And you could kill people because you had Zon's, Malakath, and the Vatishran's Destro. And it was a silly build. And I'm glad it got adjusted. I really am. I'm glad it got adjusted without people having to experience exactly what that thing is, because I thought last little tangent, but I told my buddy about it. I'm like, hey dude, come fight me real quick. He's like, why? I'm like, I want you to try and kill me. And he goes, okay. So we go to duel and I immediately go into misform, and he goes, do you want me to fight you now? I'm like, yeah, go ahead, try to kill me. And so I'm sitting in misform, and like he's going at it for like 2 or 3 minutes, dropping ults. He drops standard, like he's trying to do everything. My health bar is not moving. So he's laughing, and he laughs. He's like, dude, what is this? I'm like, yeah, it's this. I'm like, it's this. It's stupid. It's broken. Like, it's stupid. I'm getting clips for it. And he goes, yeah, but he's like, can you do damage? I'm like, of course I can. And literally, I don't know, like, it was the timing of it, but my first light attack procced Zon, and I did the Ellie drain. So I had Zon and Vatishrans, and within 2 seconds, I had half his health bar gone. And he's like, holy crap. He's like, holy crap. and yeah, he's a good player. Like, it's my buddy. I don't know if you guys watch my clips, but it's my buddy Blap. He's a really good mag DK. And I chunked half his health bar just like with a light attack and Ellie drain. And he's like, okay. He's like, yeah, that's dumb. I'm like, yep. Yep, I agree.
Can I give you a variance of that build that's probably still not fixed? Or should I? Should I?
Are you talking about the set that you can crouch with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. That's all we'll say then. Yeah.
Hey!
As far as I know, it's still broken because I have friends over on the EU server that are
Yep.
playing around with that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard that one still exists. The one that I was doing was with Alessian. And yeah,
Yeah.
people are like, what's the build? I'm like, you could, and for me, I was like, you can see 3 of the sets that I'm running. I told you the other aspects to it. You could figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But people
There's
want
a
it.
guide out there on the internet that teaches you how to figure out ESO build.
And it somehow had 2 of the same sets that I was talking about. Yeah, that was for me. Yeah.
Here's something. There's a content creator. I'm just gonna plant the seed in everyone's head so you never look at Mistform the same. But this content creator kept running into people that were doing instant continuous Mistform. Like he'd start bursting on them, they'd fight him, he'd make progress, and then they'd just Mistform, you know?
Yep.
And so he started doing the Krusty the Clown laugh every time they went into Mistform. And I will
Fantastic.
I will never look at Mistform the same. Every single time somebody goes into Mistform.
That's fantastic.
So there you go. You need to make a video on it. We're gonna add this thing. We're gonna like brow bash people into not using Mistform that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about it, but yeah, like there's some stuff that you don't know if it's broken or not. There's some stuff that, okay, nothing else is like this, so it probably is. And free 75% damage mitigation, in my opinion, is broken. So
yeah, it's not like how many times do you think in the past year would you have picked up that phone call to Mr. President? Obviously for this one, right? And you probably would have said, and while you're at it, here's another set that's broken with this form. And then you probably would have picked up the phone for the werewolf situation, right? And you can make it one phone call just to touch base on these 3 different things and, you know, give me 15 minutes of your time, Mr. President. Here's some things that are really broken in a PvP atmosphere and we need to address them. Thank you, sir. So.
Yeah. And I think that's a good idea. I've actually done that once in the past, and it managed to work. But the thing for me is and like what I posted in that video, I'm like very confident that I think it's broken, but it's just my opinion too. Like I'm not a developer, and so I don't know. Like part of me is just one of those. It's one of those things where it's like, I would love to help in that department and just be like, hey, maybe look at this. Like, I think this is a little overtuned, whatever. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I'd feel weird being like, it'd be tough to. I wouldn't want it to seem like I'm telling them how to create their game or how to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying this very well, like at all. I'm butchering everything, but I feel like providing helpful information is good, but at the same time, like I'd hate to use the bat signal for like, hey, I stubbed my toe, can you fix this? You know, and yeah, like who do they know they can rely on in that situation? What if they what if the person that they're relying on is just like they're a pet sork, hypothetically, and they just want pet sork buffs and they want anything that kills them nerfed. And yeah, that's interesting. But for me personally, yeah, those are the 2 things I would have called for. There's one other thing. It was Heartland that at the time was really broken that I talked about, and it managed to get adjusted behind the scenes. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's anything else really. Werewolves, that vampire build, the snipe desync, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think they can. I think they fixed snipe desync now. It hasn't happened to me yet. Knock on wood. This patch. So
yeah, I don't know about snipe desync, but Magnum shot still seems to cause a problem from time to time.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. I know we're running low on time here. What about? So you did a video that was it covered the new status effects, and so one of them being bleed or hemorrhage, and then that kind of equates to minor mangle. Then there's physical damage, which is sunder, and that now can apply minor breach. And then there's magic damage or overcharge, which applies minor magic steal. And could you just real quickly talk about those three things? The bleed and hemorrhage, the physical damage and sunder, and the magic damage and overcharge, and what your synopsis of your video was?
Yeah, so I didn't do I haven't come up with a build really utilizing a bunch of status effects, but about a year ago, when Elfbane, Overwhelming Surge, and Grothdar mag DKs were literally melting everything by people just existing around them, everybody's running charged at that point in time with Defile. They were running the diseased enchant, and then they were getting the minor vulnerability. They were getting burning status effect at a very high level from Grothdar. So they were just stacking status effects with their procs, and it was nasty. It was
I ran into that during Mid-Year Mayhem. There's a really good PvPer named Candlestick Maker on PC. He's an AD mag DK that was running Grothdar and all of that. And I was on a really, really tanky tune. My Ghost of Sparta Kratos, the dual wield. And I could stand toe to toe and bang with the best of them. The second I got close to that guy and I started fighting him, I was like, my health was just dripping off of me. I'm like, what the heck? Get me out of here.
Yeah.
I had to run away from him.
Yeah, everybody's running out. Grothdar was providing burning status effect at an unusually high amount. I think it was the same as direct damage abilities. So people were just stacking these. And so you had burning upon burning upon burning with all these other things, and you couldn't heal and stuff. And yeah, it was gross. I remember I was trying to fight 2 mag DKs, and I'm just standing in their Grothdar, and my health bar is disappearing, and I'm like, holy crap!
I don't even want to fight 1 mag DK, let alone 2.
Exactly. And that's the first thing I thought of when I saw all the new status effects, because they had that monster set that gives you ulti-gen off of status effects and everything, and it's just a bunch of unknowns. It's a bunch of stuff that I'm not really sure how it's all going to fit, but I thought it was interesting enough to talk about hey, the stacking of status effects could be back. It could be back. There's so much to test right now. I can't spend that much time on the game. My wife will get upset at me. But it was just one of those hey, this was really, really strong a year ago, and they introduced a bunch of these things, and there was Sundered, which is the breach, and then there's the other one, which is the bleed. The bleed gives that minor burning, or a smaller version of burning. And yeah, I was just looking at them there has to be a way to really make a nasty build where you have you're stacking all these different things, where you're getting minor breach, and then you run a master's dual wield in the future where we don't have no proc Cyrodiil. And so you're getting the bleed on them, and then that's also stacking another effect, and you have all these different effects, and then you have a disease enchant, and then you're running, maybe you're a mag DK or stam DK running poison abilities, and you now all of a sudden you've stacked 4 status effects on somebody. Sounds like it could be pretty strong, but yeah.
So these are new enchants, right, that you can put on weapons?
It's just statuses off of abilities.
Okay, because I was going to say, I could only imagine if these are new enchants floating around, and you say you're running dual wield on the back bar on a stam sork, and you're using quick cloak or whatever, and the enchant on those weapons is applying a bleed, and then on your front bar where your hurricane's at, you've got the physical damage or sunder effect on that weapon, so you're applying major breach just through your hurricane and minor mangle from your quick cloak on the back bar. That seems a little OP.
Yeah, and then the CP tree has that 60% chance to apply a status effect. Then you have charged, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, what class? And I haven't done it yet because my PC stam DK is not leveled. I don't have enough skill points, but I'm like, man, a stam DK with like I said, Master's dual wield, D swing, disease enchant, and poison dots. stacking all those negative status effects could actually be pretty disgusting. Same thing with Stamsork. Stamsork could do something similar. And yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of fun to get, like, that was just one more where I was talking about instead of having like a definitive answer. It was just something I want to test in the future when I have my full amount of sets and everything.
Isn't there? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Isn't there a star in the CP in the red section that actually, I think it's like a defensive slotted passive based on how many status effects you have on you?
Yeah, doesn't it reduce the cost or gives you more regen based on how many status effects are on you? Something like that.
Something like that. So with your prediction there, you think Zos kind of anticipated that, so they threw in something that would kind of help mitigate all those potential status
It's
effects
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that very well could be a build type in the future. I haven't tested it to know for sure, but when they start throwing around like minor breach that you can just have, which is more burst, and then they have the bleed. I forget what the status effect for that was, but they're like, yeah, this is a slightly lesser dot than burning. I'm like, burning's one of the best dots in the game. So what are we talking about for slightly lesser? Because if you're going to give me major and minor breach, and then I can attach a dot on that, like, I don't think it's going to be a lesser dot. Like, it could be a similar dot, and that could be nasty. So combined with stamina burst, like, that could be really nasty.
Yeah. How are we doing on time, Icy?
We have about 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay. Do you have any topics of choice that you'd like to discuss in 7 minutes, or any questions for us?
So we talked about it a little bit on your stream. I suppose we can talk about the build video stuff, or the how to recreate a build.
Yeah, I love that. I was telling everybody, I was like, he's the ESO Sherlock Holmes. He could watch somebody running around in PvP and tell you what he's wearing if he walks with a slight limp to the left. And
I wanted to ask you guys, I suppose, but if I made that a series, is that something that would actually be like enjoyable to watch, or what do you think? Because I have a lot of fun doing it. It's enjoyable for me.
I thought it was really cool to do that. I think it also helps broaden the viewers' understanding of different gear sets and stuff, and maybe you're helping cultivate the next theory crafters. Like, you might have people that are watching it and they're figuring out how your eyes work, when you're watching PvP. I notice this from combat sports. When I'm watching a fight, I see all the little nuances and the cadences, the rhythm and off rhythm, and this guy's thinking he's going to set up an armbar, leg triangle, and I see all these things, and everyone else is watching it and they're just like, these guys are fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you're watching this PvP and these BGs and open world, and you're seeing all the nuances and the cadences. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I got the idea because one of my buddies streams Imperial. I don't know if you've watched him on Twitch or not, but he was running this Necromancer build, and he had dual wield in 2H, and you could tell he was running the Vadishran's 2H, and you could tell he was running Daedric Trickery, and you could tell that he was running Balorg. And so you're looking at it and you're like, okay, well, he's got a 3-piece and he's not critting, so he's running Malakath. So that leaves 2 jewelry pieces and a back bar dual wield. And I'm like, and so it was really easy to figure out because most of his sets had some sort of animation. And so I'm like, hey man, is this what you're running? And he goes, yeah, that's exactly what I'm running. He's like, I wasn't sharing the build though, but thank you.
Yeah. Nice.
Like he was saying it as a joke. Like he was just joking. He's like, I wasn't really talking about the build, but yeah, that's exactly what I'm running. And I talked to him a couple days later, and he's like, you're the only guy that figured out what build I was running. Like, everybody's asking me what build I was running, what I was setting up. And I'm like, I mean, I thought like that one was super easy because it had 3 different proc animations, no crits. So it was easy to tell, like Malakath, Vadishran's like easy. But yeah, it just kind of came to me like people don't a lot of people are very new to the game and they don't know that sort of stuff about build creation. And like, you just kind of take it for granted that the game's been around 6 years. Not everybody has been playing this game for that long. And so that's why I decided to make it, because I got all that backlash from the other video. And I'm just like, you know what? If I help people figure this out, like figure out what to do, like they kind of figure this stuff out. Because I found it rewarding in the past when people didn't share builds and I had to figure it out myself. I liked the challenge. Not everybody likes that, but I think it helps a lot if you want to create your own builds and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I like that idea. And like I was talking about combat sports and stuff, there's nothing for me better than changing someone's eyesight and the way they see things or see the fights or perceive the fights. And for people that just come into the gym, they start training, maybe if they're not even training to compete, but they're just training, and here's all the different ways to apply an armbar. Here's, different kickboxing combinations. Here's how to parry. Here's how to defend. Here's how bobbing and weaving works. Here's proper critical strike range. And they see all these different things, and then all of a sudden they're watching the fights and they start seeing those things unfold in front of them, and it's changed the way they consume the sport now. And so that's what I think you're doing, is you're changing the way people will consume watching Battlegrounds or 1vx videos. So
yeah, I'm hopeful that it helps, as long as it's fun to watch. Going off what you were just saying, like, that's how my wife, like, I try to do stuff with my wife that's like her stuff, and then she tries to do stuff that's my stuff. And when we were younger, like, we bonded over basketball, because like I'm a basketball fan, and she was watching it and she didn't get it because it's like you said, like, it's not a sport she enjoyed. But she used to play lacrosse, and lacrosse has like similar like field style movements as far as like pick and roll and stuff like that. And so when I was talking to her about how the defense is moving and how the defense is shifting, she understood it because she had a different background, and it allowed her to like appreciate basketball more than just like watching people dunk on each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
I love that.
And then I was able to convince her to get season tickets to our local basketball team. And we had a lot of fun with it. She said it was a great time and all that. So yeah, those sort of things are fun. Like, when you sit down, like in your instance, when you sit down with somebody that knows fighting and you don't know anything, and you're just watching, you're like, wow, they're beating the crap out of each other. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, he's trying to maneuver, he's trying to break the guard here, he's trying like that sort of stuff. It's fun to hear. So
yeah. How we doing on time, Icy?
3 minutes.
Hey, that's enough time. So I'm going to link in the descriptions below every one of the videos that we talked about today. We talked about this build will still exist, new status effects, and we talked about no Proc Cyrodiil and recent announcements. They did shorten it from 6 months to 3 months because there was kind of an outcry for that, and ZOS kind of speeded up their timeline, so I think that's cool. And then incorporating sets to balance classes in ESO and why it doesn't work. That was one of our first topics. And then how to guide and how-to guide on recreating any build. We just kind of touch base on that. So all those videos will be linked in the descriptions. And then where else can we find you at if they missed your first podcast with us?
Wow. I post a lot of content like that on YouTube. Like, I like to talk about balance and class stuff, like what we talked about today. I also just post PvP stuff. So if you guys want to see different build videos, different build gameplay, I try to do commentaries on my thoughts when I'm playing. So if you're newer into PvP and you don't know for sure like what you want to play, maybe watching some of those and kind of seeing about movement and stuff, that could really help you. And I'm actually, I haven't said anything yet, but I'm actually streaming on Twitch on Tuesday for the release for Flames of Ambition for console. So performance has actually been really good on PC. I'm actually pretty optimistic. So yeah, I can send you the link to my Twitch if you guys want to follow that, and I'll be streaming more regularly if performance is as good on there as it has been on PC. So
yeah, I'm going to actively try and make an effort to get the Mr. President's phone number, whoever that is, or Mrs. President, to see if we can get I think that direct line person, it needs to be somebody that has a body of work that could be judged, and you have a huge body of work that they can tell that you just care about the healthiness of the overall state of health for the game, and any specific class you're not going to try and bolster them. You just want to have the best, most healthy game. And I think that's what they need, is a body of work that they could judge off and find somebody, and you definitely have that. So
Well, I appreciate that, man. And yeah, like part of it for me is I get bored playing the same class. Like I like playing them, and then I bounce to the next one. And I want all the classes to be competitive because I get bored, and I want to make sure when I hop to the next class that it's good. And so yeah, I don't want one class to be stronger than the others because I'm not on any one class all the time. So yeah, that's my biggest argument against anybody that says it's like, hey, you just want this. No, I want everybody to play their favorite classes, and I want it to be competitive.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we are right there. So links will be in the descriptions, everybody. And do you have anything, Icy?
Any final remarks before I close it out? Last chance.
Nope, I'm good to go.
Don't forget, every time you see mist form. Every time.
That's killing me.
Oh, geez.
Let's send me the link to that.
So with that said, we'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.
You're going to say, bye-bye, Argonians.
Bye bye, Rogonian.